Hello, colleagues. This week, OpenAI announced a range of new interesting features. If you missed the information about the new features, here's a brief overview: requests with 128,000 tokens, cheaper requests, visual inputs for visual analysis of images, creation of assistants, and a new entity GPTs, based on which they promise to soon create a marketplace, where GPTs developers can display their work and earn money. Everyone rushed to explore and experiment with GPTs. My Twitter is already filled with various useless experiments by others. But today I will tell you what I noticed while working with assistants and GPTs. At first, it was not immediately clear what the difference between these two entities was. I note that other users do not have access to the created assistants, unlike GPTs, which are publicly accessible to other users. To clarify, other users who use ChatGPT with a subscription. Based on this, GPTs are limited to paid accounts, and assistants require hiring developers and creating an environment for interacting with the assistants. Both GPTs and assistants can upload user files, which should serve as a source of knowledge, but assistants can execute their programming code. Function calling lets you describe custom functions of your app or external APIs to the assistant. This allows the assistant to intelligently call those functions by outputting a JSON object containing relevant arguments. I have long had the idea of a generated game world, in which each location would be generated with AI automatically and saved in a database on the server, and other users could change it with their interactions. Do you think someone would play something like this? The first thing I created was an assistant that would simulate such game mechanics. But assistants cannot generate images, so apparently this must be done through internal functions, which are still too complex for me, or already at the level of a developer server with ordinary API requests, but then the need for an assistant probably disappears, because in general, the logic of the game and requests can be built at the server level. But GPTs can generate images. However, if we talk about the fact that the created virtual world is updated, then in the assistant you can send files with updated information, roughly speaking with the statistical state of the world at a point in time, but based on GPTs such a world cannot be built for automatic updates. At the same time, if we talk about the fact that the image of the location should be taken from the updated static database, then it is not displayed in the chat. At least, in the test environment, I could not display it. That is, the very idea of such a game world could work only through the developer's server. Having played with the virtual world, I decided to try new tools at work. I downloaded a SQL dump of database tables responsible for content on my business site and asked the assistant to ask questions as a site manager. And he gave quite accurate, readable answers. So at this point, there is a perspective to link your sites to your online chats, emails, and online support services. Based on the support assistant, you can give responses to your clients as the first line of support. Already a saving on operational expenses. When I gave the database dump to GPTs, it accepted it but did not give correct answers. The next idea was to create an internal marketplace for real goods within OpenAI. A kind of Amazon in ChatGPT. You ask a question, and it suggests where and what to buy. For these purposes, I Googled several XML files with goods. It is a common practice to use XML files for product synchronization, so the idea was to connect stores to such a marketplace. GPTs accepted my XML files of about 20 megabytes, but when using GPTs any mention of products from the files did not yield any results. I wrote the instructions myself and through the internal builder, but it doesn't search for products in the files. Considering that the database was not accepted in the previous experiment, it seemed that files in GPTs don't work very well, but maybe I just haven't learned how to work with them properly. And what about the assistant? The assistant did not want to accept XML files at all. The assistant does not like this file format. I decided to continue in this direction next time. If you are interested in how these experiments ended, then subscribe to the channel and write about it in the comments. When working with the assistant, you as a developer pay for all the tokens spent on the requests. Watch the size of the files attached to the assistant. Analyzing these files consumes your tokens. At the same time, GPTs do not impose any financial burden on you as a developer. Assistants are an infrastructural entity that allows you to do large projects and startups. GPTs seem like an attempt to collect and consolidate information about its users and interests within its marketplace by OpenAI company. I think everyone knows the rule that first a service is born, then a product is born based on the service, and then a marketplace based on the product. Well, then, according to standard practice, super successful GPTs will be replaced by internal developments of the company. As a user, GPT's work is not very transparent to me. I understand that each GPT has its instructions for responding to user requests. But here's a simple example. I found a site that seems to provide information about some ready-made GPTs, but when making requests to selected GPTs, I didn't understand how they differ from my requests to the usual ChatGPT chat. Therefore, in the marketplace that should appear, I think it will be necessary to fill in a full description, usage instructions, and various screenshots with examples. In general, it should be like filling in the information in standard marketplaces like Shopify, for example. Otherwise, it's unlikely that something really good for use can be found there. At the same time, GPTs are convenient to use by creating your GPTs for your needs. For example, I previously had separate chats in which I simply wrote the same for new entries, with which I needed to perform some template operations, but now it is enough to use your GPTs, and at least there will no longer be such situations when in the new chat message the same information catches from the previous discussion, which should not be in the new request. In the last video, I talked about a module that allows you to run a blog on autopilot. I decided not to bother and created my own GPT, which would quickly rewrite articles received by this module for me. At the same time not only rewrote, but gave a new title to the article, keywords, and meta description, and generated an image. As for me, it turned out to be convenient. There will be a link in the description, use it. I look forward to your comments on what useful things for your business or work you have learned from the latest OpenAI update. Good luck.